She's not what you'd expect. She's tough and feisty, but gentle and tender. She makes millions and gives millions to the poor. She cries, she laughs, she teaches, she comforts. This is the Dani Johnson Show.
Welcome to the Dani Johnson Show. My name is Micah. Putting a cherry top on our week of daily testimonies for Christ is our hospitality team member, Zach Teeman.
Welcome to the show, Zach.
Thanks, Micah.
So, can you just share with me overall what it's been like having Jesus's like role in your life and what that looks like, and what did it look like before? You grew up in the church, but what did it look like before, growing up in the church, and what was your view of God and how you saw things, and then when you really had the relationship moment between Jesus and the Father, and then how have things changed and what has your life looked like since then? So
okay, I can give you the summary story of it, I suppose.
We'll go into as much
Sure.
detail and go in as into depth as you feel led to.
Yeah.
Just go for it.
Sure.
So I want to hear your story.
Chronologically,
Sure.
I was born into a Lutheran church. I baptized as a newborn.
Oh.
Hi. We take two on that. Sorry.
I screwed that up.
You want to make a guest appearance on your show?
I can make a guest appearance on the show. Okay, I'm gonna let you
All
go
day
and work
long.
on those numbers.
All day long.
Bye.
This is
It's a guest. It's a guest appearance on my own show. You look amazing, young
Thank
man. I'm excited to see you.
Sorry, I didn't tell you.
But that's okay. We're good.
okay. So born into the Lutheran church, I knew God from the doctrine, from people talking to me about it, and really my faith came also from my mom was looking for more, and really it happened during that time when I was really young. I can't remember the exact age, but not wanting to just be in the Lutheran church anymore, so she found a non-denominational where she was getting more God. I mean, just to put it simply. And from that, there definitely was a lot of changes that happened in life at a young age. I will say that my mom reminds me and tells me about this, but I guess it was around the age of 11 that I was just in my bed one night and was my official, really just giving myself over and really wanting and desiring to know, to understand who God is, what God is, why God is, all of that. I can't really discern that in my 11-year-old self, but I know now that all of that yearning inside was definitely all of that. And I guess the real life with God, where he began to quicken things to me and wake me up to his world more, happened, I mean, you could say little by little from that moment on. But I think it's always been like that. That's what God does with certainly with me, but with everybody else. We when we're really coming to know him, it's our eyes are opening just a little bit more each time. And the biggest trials did happen, I guess, during my teenage years or formative years, and just trying to remember back, I struggled a lot. I still do even now, you know, whine, complain, get mad at God. But, you know, then I have to step out of myself and look at all that He has done, all the promises He has given me, and He's mapped it out. He's always said it that it becomes, it's put in my heart first before I even recognize it. And then all of a sudden I say it, and then He begins to show me how He's doing it little by little along the way. So then I can't argue with Him about any of it, and it's undeniable that He's leading, and it's not by my own efforts that I become anything. You know, if I have something worthy to talk about or anything like that, it's because I know, at least in my mind and heart, though I'm not saying it out to everybody else, that it's been Him, and it's been good. Is really the most important thing, and what my flesh, you know, doesn't even wants to fight and I think that's the biggest. Sorry, I'm probably rabbit trailing again, but
you carry on as this is your story. Dude,
okay,
this is your story.
My story has a lot of rabbit trails. I don't know. It does help to, if you have any more questions that you want to ask about anything, I can go off of that. That would help me a lot to keep me more concise, so I'm not going into crying my eyes out or anything, because I'll just start focusing on the, anyway.
Going back to what you said about like when you were 11 and having the yearning of like who God is and what God is and why He is, how do you, what is your understanding of that now, since then? And what was your learning curve to get there?
There's been a lot of learning curves from that time till now. I mean, I guess that's what I mean by the little by little. It really is a nitty-gritty. Flesh doesn't want to learn this lesson and change, you know, this thing changed, be knocked off, be burned out, you know. But as a kid, I'm not an innocent, you know. We all have specific things in us that are not good. And it's hard for some people to admit that or say that or believe that, but from whatever situations where, you know, ranging from whatever I grew up in to just what also is naturally there in me. God does these sort of things on purpose to bring us through this process that helps me understand Him more and what love really looks like, what His character really is, and the hard things that I go through are designed specifically to change me, to bring that understanding, and to embed it within me, to make it something permanent.
What are some things that God has done to you to show you what love looks like?
More specifically, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like what personally has happened in your life that has What are those things? Those things that he has
Some of the
done?
biggest things that stuck out to me, especially in high school, I guess I'll say, everything changed in high school. And that's when I think really more times than any pulled into knowing that I absolutely needed God, because I would have nervous breakdowns, and I'll get more specific in a moment, but you know, depression, thoughts of suicide, loneliness. And a lot of it had to do with being openly persecuted at school. It seemed subtle enough, but even at times of being like thrown up against a wall because I didn't like how they were, this, you know, one of my so-called friends was acting in the class. There was, you know, the teacher wasn't there, so free reign, all this kind of stuff, and they weren't serious about getting down. And this is a class that I really enjoyed. You know, I really love music, and it was, you know, maybe I didn't handle it right. I can't remember all the specifics. I would absolutely say that I am no saint, but I just, all of these sort of things began to happen that ostracized me from what I thought, you know, and what I depended on and clinged on, more than depending on and clinging on God. He ultimately made that like the first priority for me then, to cling to Him and to give everything over. And I don't know. It was also a very cloudy time too. I was going through my mom and dad getting a divorce, and from that, again, just needing to know God there, and He had many different ways that saved me, that kept me from focusing on all the bad things, because He gave me good things to look at. The very biggest example of that time was not just music, because music had always been intrinsic, if that's the right word, in my life, but opened me up to theater at that time. Mr. Finney, my choir teacher at that time, another example of a father figure for me in that time, and also just an example of God and His love. He knew and saw the talent in me, obviously, but I was still rough then. I mean, it's high school, you know, and He helped me find my voice. Also, we had a musical coming up at the beginning of my junior year there that I didn't want to be in. But He was like, can you please just come and audition, sing Star Spangled Banner? And so I did. I came, I sang that, and then they were like, great, you have Will Parker, the secondary lead role in Oklahoma. And I was like, oh, okay. And you know, from that moment on, and just watching everything, and another one of my tutors and mentors in life that also really helped me get excited about theater, Holly Rydell. She just put excitement back into me about what I already had in me that was so easy. You know, she told me I had a rubber face, you know, Jim Carrey, and then, you know, it just reminded me of childhood when I thought about Jerry Lewis, Jim Carrey, Dick Van Dyke, and all the people that I loved, and that, you know, I thought I emulated then, because, you know, except even more spastically so, because I'm a kid and there was no discipline to it. But yeah, it was natural to me to take the stage. You know, physical movement, dancing, all of that. It was fun, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so it was a way that God used, and you know, again, music and theater have still stayed with me through all of that. I thought I've stepped away and walked away from it so many different times, and God kept bringing me back, but with lessons, and I could probably go on for days about, you know, each lesson that was taught me, but it would take too long.
So then what would be, if you could choose one, or like one of your top...
No, I can't, but
what's the
I will
biggest,
try.
What would you say is like, maybe not the biggest or the greatest, but like, fresh off the top of your mind, what would you say is like one of those lessons that he taught you that is maybe still like trips you out to this day through the music and the theater?
Through the music and the theater side,
or just in general.
I was gonna say goodbye to theater. I was in college. Thought I was finishing up, and my advisor was telling me that I had like a whole nother year to go, and I was like, you tell me this at the end as it's ready to... there was a lot of things that again, I don't see myself innocent in this. I could have had the knowledge and forthwith to understand and look at that, but I didn't have the discipline again. But I was like, it was all very too overwhelming at that time, and there was a lot of other cloudier things that I was getting into that I didn't need to, but I wanted to because the flesh wants what it wants. And again, I think that it's the perfect example of a love story, especially on, you know, on God's side, how he can take you from, and he lets you go. He'll let you go a certain way long enough to where you finally understand that those things that you wanted are horrible and are death, and it's okay though, because he still got you. And I always knew that God's hand, whether I wanted him there or not, was always on my life. You know, that verse, I will never leave you or forsake you, you know, it can sound many different ways, but it's all of them. You know, he says, I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you. And then he can also say, I'll never leave you. I'm gonna be here. You better believe it. I mean, you're still gonna go through hard stuff. You know, that's that purification, the spiritual example out in motion of burning away all that crap that doesn't need to be there.
Share with me, how did God affect you after that, after the divorce situation, and what was God's presence in your life after that, whether you knew it or not then, but looking back on it now, because, you know, like, divorce in the family is like, that's your foundation that's the foundation of a kid kind of being taken almost up from underneath them, right?
I was mad at God a lot. I mean, I've said that already, but
how did you work through?
Doing what I could with what I had. I mean, during all that cloudy stuff, my solace was what I could do, what I had talent in, you know. So singing, acting, art in general. I mean, I'd always, since I was a little boy, also been able to draw and design, loved fashion, you know. I threw myself into a lot of that too.
Sounds like God used theater and music big time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a part of, and I still want it to be a part of my life.
Right.
It's what I know. It's what I can do.
But I mean, like, coming out of the experience of your parents' divorce and like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's absolutely what...
Theater and music was God's method of saving you from that, protecting you.
Especially theater and understanding people, because it's the perfect tool that helped me also understand my father more, my biological father, my dad, and understand my mom, understand anybody if I truly took the time. Now I'm still a person and had still a lot of flesh, and so I went by some form of whatever righteousness I thought in my head a lot of times too. And God continues to break down those barriers of bull, malarkey, the flesh again, and give me a true understanding. After he's broken all of that down, then I begin to really see the right way to do things is with that heart of love and that heart of understanding, that heart of sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Where I am now with God, he still takes me through that dragging. I'm undisciplined still, I would say. Things that I'm weak at, and I think, you know, it's also very helpful having somebody like Trisha, and that has also been the that to me has been the strongest out of everything. And God brings stronger and stronger examples as life goes on, and, you know, stronger anchors to understanding who he is and what his love is, because, you know, it's a graduation each time of learning life and living life. And so that's where my mentality is a lot. And so my biggest thing is, and still will be, his promise that I would find a good wife. And together we understand, we become one, but we're also becoming one in knowing him more and becoming like him more, and becoming that because, you know, God is both. He's both male and female. You know, he has all of the wonderful pieces that we see day to day in each person completely in him. And, you know, it starts with me understanding her and loving her. And like I said, that's been the biggest anchor for me, and also a huge part of continual healing. And bringing me back to trusting more, just letting go. Look at what's already promised. And then also we have a son on the way. So just more and more promises that he's given, that he will take care of me. And so just stepping out and going through all the stuff that I don't want to go through, or that I do want to go through, whatever is before me. There's something to learn out of everything. And I think that is where I would sum up where I find myself these days.